Aftershocks are still rocking parts of Southern California today following two massive earthquakes that struck Thursday and Friday. The largest was a magnitude 7.1 quake, the biggest to hit the area in 20 years. Communities closest to the epicenter in the Mojave Desert, 150 miles north of Los Angeles, were upended by the damage. Special correspondent Kat Wise visited the towns where residents are picking up the pieces.
Residents are trickling back into some of the hardest hit communities to see the scope of the damage. Ashley Evans is one of them. She's lived in the small town of Trona her entire life. It's located about 30 miles northeast of Ridgecrest, the largest town in the area near the epicenter.
I thought being in Trona I'd never experience anything crazy.
You didn't know that there was an earthquake, with the potential for an earthquake
I thought
here.
that was for movies.
When we met the 21-year-old single mother, she was returning home with her 2-week-old baby and young daughter for the first time in several days.
It's just me, so I had to buy all this myself anyways. So anything broken is what I lost out on. I'm glad that my house didn't cave in anywhere. A lot of houses are coming down in the roof.
Did you have any earthquake insurance?
No. So, just have to clean it.
About 50 homes in Trona have been destroyed. Rock slides temporarily closed the main road into town, cutting off access to the 1,500 people who live there. The electricity was cut off, amid temperatures hovering around 100 degrees, but it has since been restored. Residents are still without drinking water, so cases are having to be trucked in. It was a different scene in Ridgecrest, a community of 29,000 where water and electricity have been fully restored. Crews are still inspecting homes for signs of structural damage, but all government buildings have been deemed safe. They're not the only ones taking stock of the quake's impact. As the sun came up this morning, a group of scientists and researchers gathered to discuss their goals for the day. They're part of a large collaborative effort between government agencies, universities, and private companies who are quickly trying to study newly visible fault lines before the elements and humans disturb the scene.
It's the biggest earthquake we've had in about 20 years, so it brought me out of retirement to come back out here and help with the effort.
Among them is Jerry Tryman, a former senior engineering geologist at the California Geological Survey.
Some of the ruptures further east of us are already getting covered by wind-blown dust and sand, and we'll lose that. Especially these smaller faults, or faults that moved less in this event, have very fine fracturing, which can be hard to see after a week or more. And what we don't know is if these small faults, small displacements now, might move with more displacement in a future earthquake.
Each of these little red dots is an earthquake we've experienced over the past few days.
Seismologist Jen Andrews and her colleagues at the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena are analyzing data from the earthquake sensors to see what it can tell them about future events.
One of the concerns here is that when we look at a map and we see faults little fault sections intersecting like this, we now have a very clear picture that they can move together. That because we've got movement on two different faults, on two different sort of small faults, they can join together and give us a much bigger earthquake. They can give us a much bigger magnitude and stronger shaking.
And although scientists are carefully monitoring seismic activity around the state, Andrews says there are still undiscovered and unstudied faults that could cause problems in the future.
There are lots of faults that we haven't mapped, that we maybe have some indication of from surface expression, but haven't been particularly active. And so there's this risk that we have to factor in as well about what could be moving that we're unaware of.
Many of the 4,000 aftershocks recorded so far have been small, but some residents are so unnerved that they've felt safer sleeping outside.
It's nice and cool out here, and we get to see the stars, and it's like a permanent camping trip for us.
Jessica Schultz has spent the last 2 nights sleeping outdoors in Trona with her 3 sons. They've been sharing a mattress in a tent in her front yard.
I'm scared that if we sleep inside, we'll have that big earthquake coming that they say is going to happen, and we won't be able to get out of this one. So I figure if we sleep outside and it comes, we can just get into our car and go. because we already packed it. It's got food, water, it's got our clothes in it, everything that we're going to need.
As the sun set last night, they were building a fire and preparing ready-to-eat meals dropped off by volunteers earlier in the day. Local officials have warned residents to brace themselves for more aftershocks over the coming days. But the likelihood of a large one has dropped significantly.
We've felt several of those smaller aftershocks since we've been here reporting, including one just a few hours ago. Judy?
And Kat, these aftershocks clearly rattling people there. What else are they telling you? How are they coping?
The residents that we've been talking to have told us that they really are on edge. One mother told me that she's been sleeping in the back of her pickup truck with her 4 teenage children, and none of them have been getting very much sleep over the last few nights. Another mother told me that her young toddler has been crying out loudly every time she feels shaking. We've also heard from residents that they've heard reports that another large aftershock could happen at any moment. But we know from USGS officials that at this point, the likelihood of a strong aftershock, 6.0 or greater, is less than 10%. But still at this time, even mild shaking is really causing a lot of anxiety and fear among residents, adults and children alike.
It has to be unnerving. And so, Kat, what would you say is the greatest need there now?
In Trona, where we've spent the most time over the last couple of days, the biggest need is clearly water. Bottled water is being handed out to residents by volunteers and the National Guard, but we've been hearing from folks that they're really frustrated water service hasn't been brought back online for the community yet. Many residents rely on running water for their air conditioning units, and it's extremely hot here. We spoke to a local official today who said it's unclear at this point when water service will be back up and running.
Kat Wise, we thank you. We know it's about 100 degrees where you are, reporting from Southern California near Trona.